The first thing anyone noticed was not the crying baby, nor the restless line of impatient shoppers stretching toward the fluorescent-lit aisles. It was the sound of coins, a soft, trembling clatter like tiny pieces of dignity slipping through shaking fingers. The young woman at the checkout counter stood frozen, her shoulders tense, her breath shallow, as though the entire weight of the world had settled on her back in that single, unbearable moment. The cashier avoided eye contact. The people behind her shifted uncomfortably, and somewhere in the silence, a quiet storm gathered, the kind that changes lives forever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that happen when we least expect them, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that humanity still exists, and subscribe to the channel. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Marina Caldwell had never imagined her life narrowing into something so painfully small. Once, her days had been filled with ordinary dreams, a steady job, a modest apartment with sunlit windows, laughter echoing through rooms that smelled of coffee and fresh laundry. But life, with its unpredictable cruelty, had rewritten everything. Now, she stood beneath the unforgiving supermarket lights, her world reduced to a plastic basket of essentials and the desperate arithmetic of survival. Her baby daughter, Alawan, slept in the stroller beside her, wrapped in a faded yellow blanket that had seen too many nights of anxious pacing. Marina watched the tiny rise and fall of the child's chest, clinging to that fragile rhythm as if it were proof that hope still existed. The formula tin resting on the conveyor belt felt heavier than anything she had ever carried. It was not just food. It was reassurance. It was tomorrow. It was the difference between calm and chaos, between comfort and hunger, between being a mother who could provide and one who could not. The total flashed on the screen with brutal indifference. Marina's heart sank. She had calculated, recalculated, stretched every number until it almost broke. Yet reality refused to bend. Her fingers trembled as she opened her worn wallet, its edges frayed like her nerves. Inside lay a few folded bills, some coins, and the quiet humiliation of knowing it might not be enough. She counted once, then again. Each coin placed on the counter felt like a confession, each second an eternity. The line behind her grew restless, breaths turning into sighs, sighs into visible impatience. Her mind raced through impossible choices. Put back the bread? Return the diapers? Sacrifice her own meals for another week? The arithmetic of poverty was merciless, always demanding something, always taking more than it gave. And beneath it all was the constant gnawing fear that she was failing the tiny human who depended on her for everything. Marina's life had unraveled quietly, without dramatic explosions or sudden disasters. It began with a phone call on a gray morning, the kind of morning that seemed too ordinary to carry tragedy. The company downsizing, the position eliminated, the polite apologies that did nothing to soften the reality of unemployment. She had smiled, nodded, thanked them for the opportunity, and walked out with a cardboard box of belongings and a future she could no longer recognize. At first, she believed it was temporary, a setback, something resilience and determination could conquer. But interviews turned into rejections, savings dissolved into rent payments, and optimism eroded under the slow, relentless pressure of bills. Pregnancy, once a source of joy, became entangled with anxiety. The father, already drifting before the hardship, vanished entirely when responsibility loomed too large. Promises evaporated. Phone calls went unanswered. Marina found herself alone, navigating a world suddenly stripped of safety nets. Sleep became a luxury. Stability became a memory. Back at the checkout counter, reality tightened its grip. Marina's coins were still not enough. A flush of heat crept up her neck, shame spreading like wildfire beneath the curious, judging eyes of strangers. She wished the ground would open. She wished invisibility were possible. Above all, she wished she could shield her daughter from this moment, from the harshness of a world that measured worth in currency. The cashier hesitated, uncertainty flickering across her face. The customers behind Marina leaned forward slightly, drawn by the silent drama unfolding before them. And in that thick, suffocating pause, Marina felt the familiar ache of defeat. It was not merely about money, it was about dignity, about the crushing loneliness of feeling abandoned by fate itself. Then, something shifted. From behind her, a presence moved, unhurried, almost gentle. A man who had been waiting silently in line stepped forward, his expression neither pitying nor impatient. He did not carry the air of someone eager to display generosity or claim attention. Instead, there was a quiet steadiness about him, a calm that seemed strangely out of place amid the tension. Marina barely registered him at first, too consumed by the storm of embarrassment and despair. But the moment he spoke, everything changed. His voice was low, respectful, almost private, as though he understood that dignity was a fragile thing, easily shattered by spectacle. There was no theatrical kindness, no exaggerated sympathy, just a simple human gesture offered without expectation. The world did not erupt into applause. No one gasped dramatically. The fluorescent lights did not soften. Yet for Marina, it felt as though something profound had occurred, a tiny fracture in the relentless darkness that had defined her recent existence. Tears welled in her eyes, sudden and unstoppable. Not loud, dramatic sobs, but the quiet, exhausted release of someone who had been holding too much for too long. Relief and disbelief tangled within her chest. Gratitude, sharp and overwhelming, left her momentarily breathless. The man, whose name Marina would later learn was Adrian Voss, did not linger for praise. He did not demand thanks or recognition. His kindness was effortless, almost instinctive, the kind that revealed character rather than charity. And as Marina gathered her purchases, her hands still trembling but now for entirely different reasons, something unfamiliar stirred within her, a fragile flicker of faith. That evening, in her dimly lit apartment where the hum of an aging refrigerator was the only constant companion, Marina prepared Elowen's bottle with a sense of wonder she could hardly articulate. The simple act felt monumental. Each tiny movement carried the echo of that unexpected moment at the store, a reminder that compassion could appear in the most unlikely places. But the true impact of Adrian's gesture unfolded slowly, in ways Marina could never have predicted. Kindness has a peculiar power. It does not merely solve immediate problems. It alters internal landscapes. In the days that followed, Marina found herself moving through the world with a slightly lighter step, her despair softened by the memory of a stranger's quiet empathy. It did not erase her struggles. The bills still loomed, the uncertainties remained. Yet something fundamental had shifted, the crushing certainty that she was entirely alone. A week later, Marina encountered Adrian again, not through coincidence, but intention. A folded note tucked discreetly into her grocery bag during that first encounter had contained more than simple reassurance. It carried an invitation, not of obligation, but of possibility. A contact, a potential opportunity. A door, however small, left ajar. Adrian was not a wealthy benefactor nor a dramatic savior. He was instead someone who recognized resilience when he saw it, someone who understood that sometimes people need not rescue but a chance. Through him, Marina discovered temporary work, then connections, then a pathway back into stability. The journey was neither instant nor effortless. It demanded persistence, courage, and the painful rebuilding of confidence eroded by hardship. Yet step by step, the impossible began to feel attainable. Months passed. Marina's life did not transform into fairy tale perfection. Real stories rarely do. But there was progress, steady, hard-earned, deeply meaningful. The arithmetic of survival slowly gave way to the arithmetic of rebuilding. And through it all, the memory of coins trembling on a checkout counter remained etched into her heart, a reminder of both vulnerability and grace. Near the end of this story, if you have felt even a fraction of Marina's fear, her exhaustion, or the quiet miracle of unexpected kindness, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and let your thoughts live in the comments. Stories like this survive because hearts like yours keep them alive. Before we reach the ending, there is one special request for you. In the comments, write a single word: kindness. A small word, yet one capable of changing entire lives. Years later, Marina would often reflect on that ordinary afternoon beneath fluorescent lights, not as the day she nearly broke, but as the day the universe whispered something extraordinary through the voice of a stranger. A day when dignity was preserved, when despair met compassion, when a life veered quietly away from hopelessness. Because sometimes the most powerful miracles do not arrive with thunder or spectacle. They come softly, carried by ordinary people, spoken in gentle voices, changing everything without the world even noticing. And somewhere, in another supermarket, another silent battle may be unfolding, another pair of trembling hands, another fragile hope, waiting, perhaps, for a quiet voice to remind them that they are not alone.